Why does life feel like it's speeding up, even though nothing about time has actually changed? Why did childhood feel so long, but now entire years seem to just disappear? And why is it that the happiest moments of your life feel like they're over in seconds, but the painful ones feel like they last forever? What if I told you time isn't actually what you think it is? Hello to all of you beautiful souls. I'm so happy you're here with me today. Welcome back to The Expanding Soul, a place where we explore growth, healing, and what it really means to become the best version of ourselves. My name is Kristen, and today's episode feels like a continuation of something we started last time. In the last episode, we talked about life, healing, and the universe. And something kept weaving its way into that conversation. Time. How it shapes us, how it heals us, how it changes everything. And sometimes, how it feels like it's slipping through our fingers. And when I finished that episode, I realized something. I really miss talking about the universe and the science. I love talking about that stuff. It brings me so much joy. Last time I talked a lot about time, but I only skimmed the surface of what I could talk about. Time isn't just something we experience in our lives. It exists on a much bigger scale, a cosmic scale. So today, we're going to slow things down a bit and explore something we all experience, but rarely understand. What is time, really? We'll look at it through science, through space and the universe, through your brain and your emotions, and then bring it all back to your life and why time feels the way it does for you. And like always, my goal isn't to tell you what to believe. It's to help you understand what we know, what we experience, and where those two things meet. By the end of this episode, you might not just understand time differently, you might start experiencing your life differently too. Before we go into space, before we go into perception, let's ground ourselves in what time actually is, in physics. Time is a measurable quantity that defines a sequence of events. It's simply a measure of change, and if no change occurred, there would be no way to track time. But thankfully, we are in an ever-changing universe that constantly rotates and moves, so we can very much track time. Now, when we zoom out into the universe, that's when things get a bit more complicated. Time is considered a dimension. When people say we live in a three-dimensional reality, what they're saying is that we have three dimensions of space, being up and down, forward and back, and left and right. Before Einstein, scientists believe we had those three spatial dimensions plus one time dimension. But Einstein's theory of special relativity created a mathematical link between space and time. It was found that space and time are actually a unified entity where one can't exist without the other. It isn't just space or time, it's space-time. And space-time started 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang. You may have heard people refer to this as the fabric of space-time. And in a way, visualizing space-time does kind of look like a waving fabric. The fabric bends around any objects of mass, meaning space-time literally curves around celestial objects. The best way I can think to picture it is if you had a giant tray of really strong jello that wouldn't fall apart, and you took a big bowling ball and placed it in the center of the jello. The jello would have to move to allow for the mass of the bowling ball to exist within it, which would result in little waves rippling out from where the bowling ball was. And the jello would curve around the bowling ball, holding it in place. That's kind of what is happening with our sun. And the Earth is like this little golf ball that's traveling around the sun on one of the little jello waves. Wow, I hope that example didn't make it worse. But the more massive the object is, the more spacetime curves. In astronomy, you can see evidence of this by seeing what looks like streaks of light around massive stars. This light is really light coming from some other faraway star that is directly behind the object you're looking at. The light literally bends around the object and continues on its path. And this is what's referred to as the curvature of spacetime. Now, curved spacetime is what tells matter how to move. Think back to your middle school science class, where you learned about how the planets in our solar system orbit the sun. You may have been taught that the sun, being the most massive object, attracts the lesser massive objects, like the planets, with its gravity, and that's why the planets orbit the sun. Science teachers likely teach it like this because the truth can be a bit more complicated and difficult for a learning child to understand. But you aren't a learning child anymore. So, while it's true that gravity does play a factor, as does the planet's forward momentum, the largest cause of the orbiting planets is due to the curvature of spacetime around the sun. Here's the most fascinating part. Time can actually move quicker or slower depending on the curvature of spacetime. This is called gravitational time dilation, and it means that time moves slower the closer you get to a massive object. And the more massive the object, the more time can change. So if you were traveling toward a massive black hole somewhere in the universe, as you got closer to it, time would move slower and slower, much slower than you'd experience on the surface of the Earth. Time would slow down dramatically for you compared to someone far away from the black hole. Minutes for you could be hours, days, even years for someone else. Time can also move at different speeds depending on the speed at which you're traveling through space. I'm not going to get into the full science of this because it can get a bit complicated and I don't want to lose you. So instead, let me give you the results of Einstein's twin paradox thought experiment. So imagine two twins on Earth, Sam and Alice, who are both 30 years old. Alice is going to go out into space in her rocket ship and return to Earth, and Sam is staying behind on the Earth. Because of the speed of travel, with other considerations like acceleration, time would run slower for Alice on her spaceship than it would for Sam on Earth. So when Alice returns, she would find herself to be younger than her twin. How freaking crazy is that? I mean, honestly, there is so much I could continue to share about the science of time, and it is fascinating stuff. But let's take a step back and look at what all of this means. It means that time is not constant. Time is relative. Time is flexible. It bends, it stretches. It behaves differently depending on your reference frame, depending on where you are. And I don't know about you, but that alone makes time feel a lot more mysterious, more captivating. And this isn't just sci-fi. This is based on real physics. Even here on Earth, time moves slightly differently depending on your altitude, because the closer you are to Earth's surface, the slower time moves for you. Clocks on satellites tick faster than clocks on Earth. It's not by a huge amount, but it adds up. So when we think about time in the universe, it's not this universal clock ticking the same for everyone and everything. It's more like each place has its own relationship with time. And I think that's such a powerful thing to sit with, because it shows us that time is not as absolute as it feels. Another cool thing about science and time is one that you may have never realized. I talked about this briefly in the last episode about things I've learned in life. At night, when you're staring up at the stars, it's not you looking at stars from a very far distance away, seeing things as they are right now. It's actually you looking at light that was given off by those stars in the past. You're seeing them as they were sometimes thousands or millions of years ago. Light travels roughly 299,000 kilometers per second, which sounds so fast it could almost be instantaneous. But when you're talking about the incredible vast distances across our universe, those seconds can add up. So when you look at a star that's 1,000 light years away, you're seeing that star as it was 1,000 years ago, which means you are literally looking into the past. I don't know about you, but this is seriously one of the most fascinating things for me, because it means that the universe isn't just happening now. It's layered, past, present, and future, all existing in ways we can't fully perceive at once. And it makes our human experience of time feel so specific, so personal. Because while the universe is operating on these massive timescales, we're here, living inside of seconds, minutes, years, feeling every moment deeply. And both of these realities are true at the same time. Now let's bring this a little closer and talk about how your brain experiences time. You interpret the experiences you have through your senses, what you hear, see, or feel. And your brain experiences time based on its current and past sensory inputs and the amount of time in between those sensory inputs. Which means how you experience time isn't fixed either. It's relative. According to Martin Weiner, the associate professor at George Mason University in Virginia, there is no specific part of the brain that controls time. It's more spread out across the brain. Some scientists believe that there may be a separate internal clock for each sense, along with a separate internal clock for bodily functions, like speeding up or slowing down your heart rate. He also says that because our perceptions of time are constructed from so many sources, time can seem to stretch and contract. It can even seem to dilate or make time feel slower, all depending on what sensory inputs you're experiencing or remembering at that moment. That's why when you're waiting for that vacation that's a few weeks away, time seems to tick slower and slower because you're focused on the time you have to wait until your vacation. Or when you're in a moment of playing a fun game with your friends, time seems to move quickly because you're not focused on time. You're focused on the enjoyable time you're having with your friends. Weiner says that although it isn't an exact science, you can do things to alter your perspective of time by changing what you're focusing on. So if you're in a beautiful moment with your family that you want to last forever, focus on the passage of time. Focus on the enjoyment you're getting every minute, every second. Savor and appreciate that time. And alternatively, if you're bored waiting on your Uber, don't think of the passage of time. Focus on something else to make time go by faster. Find something fun you can distract yourself with. That could be playing Angry Birds or counting the cars that go by, whatever makes you feel enjoyment. But what about that feeling of looking back through the years and feeling like they just flew by? How can we slow down that feeling where when we look back into our memories, it feels like tons of time? Well, our brains actually consolidate time that is habitual. Meaning, if you're doing the same things day in and day out, where you move automatically through memory and don't even have to think about what you're doing, all of that is encoded into the brain less than a memory that is new, exciting, or demands attention. Those experiences are encoded deeper. So if you want to look back at the end of the year and feel like you really lived and not like the year just rushed by, you have to plan for new experiences. Go to a new place on vacation. Join a class for something you've never done and meet new people. Do things that you've never experienced before. Those experiences will encode into your brain where you'll look back and say, wow, I really did a lot this year. That was really awesome. This is why childhood feels so long, and yet adulthood seems as if it's just speeding by. When you were a kid, every single day was likely a new experience. Whereas now, you're doing mostly the same kind of thing. Wake up, go to work, walk the dog, go to bed, repeat. There's nothing new to be recorded, so your brain just assumes you're living that amount of time over again, in a way. So it's really important to plan in ways for you to experience new things into your normal routine. And it's important to really plan them in, because you know damn well that if you don't block that part of your schedule, something will come up or someone will need you or whatever. So no, that is your new experience time. The more that we value and pay attention to the time we have, the more our brains will record the time as time well spent. When we wrap all of this up, we can make some pretty cool observations. Because when you understand that time isn't fixed, your brain is shaping your experience, and even the universe doesn't operate on a single clock, you start to realize something really important. The way your life feels is not set in stone. You're not stuck watching time fly by. You're experiencing it through your habits, your attention, your environment, your emotional state, which means you can actually change it. So let's make this practical. If time feels like it's speeding up, how do you slow it down? Here are a few ways that actually work, not by changing time, but by changing your experience of it. The first way is to break your routine on purpose. This is what we were talking about earlier with making new experiences. Your brain compresses repetition. So if every day looks the same, your life will feel like it's flying by. So do something new. Take a different route home. Try a new coffee shop. Talk to someone new. It doesn't have to be complicated to be new and exciting for your brain. The second way is to be fully present in moments you care about. When something matters to you, slow down on purpose. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel. Your brain is categorizing every sense, so flood it with every sense you can. That way, when you look back on that moment, you'll be able to almost re-experience it all over again. The third way is to limit autopilot. Autopilot is where time disappears. The more conscious you are, the more time you feel. And look, I get it. This can be easier said than done, but just try. If you catch yourself going through the motions without thinking about them, bring your focus back to what you're doing and think out every step. The fourth way is to create anchor memories. This is another one that relates to having new experiences. But these anchor experiences are bigger than your everyday taking a new way home from work type experiences. These are those moments that make you feel like you lived. Moments that you'll remember. Not just things that you have to do, but things that matter to you. And these could be literally anything. They could be planning to go rock climbing for the first time, or going on vacation somewhere you've never been. Just find what matters to you and plan it in. The final way is to let yourself feel things fully. Emotions deepen experiences, and deeper experiences feel longer. So if you really want to use every single second of the time you have, feel everything in your life. Feel every laugh, every moment of joy, and feel every teardrop and moment of anger. Just don't get stuck in them. The more you feel, the more you live. And at the end of the day, time is this strange mix of physics, perception, and experience. It's happening out there in the universe, bending, stretching, existing in ways we don't fully understand. And at the same time, it's happening inside of you, being shaped by your thoughts, your attention, your awareness. Time is such a beautifully complex part of our reality. Maybe the answer isn't in fearing the amount of time that you have or will lose, but rather about being engaged in and grateful for all of the time you've had and will have. Like everything else in self-growth, it seems that getting the most out of time comes down to a mindset change. And we already know that mindset changes are more than possible. I hope that you found this episode to be informative and interesting and insightful. If any piece of it resonated with you, I'd really love to hear from you. Leave a comment, shoot me a message, tag me on socials, whatever works for you, but please let me know your thoughts. And if you ever have any topic suggestions, I'd love to hear those too. Even if it's just something you're curious about and want someone to research it and piece it all together for you, I got you. If you haven't already, please like, follow, and subscribe. I am sending you so much love. Talk to you next time. Bye.